Papua, a region rich in natural resources but marked by decades of political tension, remains the epicenter of a conflict that has its roots in the decolonization of Indonesia. The history of the struggle dates back to 1945, when Indonesia proclaimed its independence, but the Netherlands, which still controlled the region, had other aspirations for this future. Over the years, Papua has been the scene of a constant clash between the Papuans' desire for independence and the fierce opposition of the Indian government, which has sought to consolidate its sovereignty over the region at all costs. Over the years, the separatist groups, most notably the Free Papua Movement (OPM) and its armed wing, the TPNPB, have carried out numerous attacks against Indonesian security forces, seeking to achieve what they consider the right to self-determination. Violence has escalated, and in 2021, after a high-profile assassination, the Indonesian government designed the TPNPB as a terrorist organization. This move has generated great controversy, as many voices, both within Indonesia and outside of the country, fear that it will be used to suppress peaceful demands for independence.
In West Papua, military and police forces have long operated with impunity, committing human rights abuses. Despite promises from President Joko Widodo to address these issues, authorities have continued to restrict access to the region by the media, international diplomats, and human rights organizations, preventing full transparency and investigation into the violations. A major issue remains the racial discrimination faced by indigenous Papuans. The discrimination was brought to the forefront in 2019 when security forces attacked Papuan university students in Surabaya, sparking protests across 33 cities. The process highlighted the ongoing denial of Papuans' fundamental rights, including access to health services, education, and employment. In response, at least 245 people were convicted for their involvement in the protest, including 109 for treason. However, due to both domestic and international pressure, these individuals received significantly shorter prison sentences, and many were released by 2024 after serving much of their terms in pre-trial detention. In 2022, the Indonesian parliament enacted a controversial law that split the province of Papua and West Papua into 6 new administrative regions, further complicating the situation. The government has actively encouraged the relocation of non-Papuan settlers, often subsidizing the migration of these families to the region. Meanwhile, the armed insurgency for Papuan independence continues to exacerbate the human rights situation. Pro-independence insurgents involved in clashes with Indonesian forces have also been responsible for violence against non-Papuan migrants and foreign workers. One high-profile case involved the kidnapping of New Zealand pilot Philip Mertens, held hostage by insurgents from February 2023 until September 2024. The insurgents released him on humanitarian grounds after holding him for over 594 days. The ongoing conflict and abuses in West Papua continue to fuel a humanitarian crisis, with indigenous Papuans bearing the brunt of the violence and discrimination. Despite international attention and calls for reform, the situation remains dire, with little prospect for meaningful change without greater pressure on the Indonesian government to address these long-standing issues.
Violence in civilians. The ongoing conflict between Indonesian state forces and the Free Papua Movement (TPNPB) takes a heavy toll on civilians. In recent years, tens of thousands of Papuans have been forced to flee their homes due to increasing violence. Between 60,000 and 100,000 people have been displaced since late 2018, as clashes between the Indonesian military and the TPNPB have escalated. Civilians have not only been caught in the crossfire of these two opposing forces, but have also been directly attacked, a worrying trend that has been on the rise. State forces have been responsible for widespread violence against Papuans, accusing them of supporting the TPNPB. These attacks have been carried out both in Papua and outside the region, affecting innocent civilians who are often detained, tortured, or even killed. On 22 August of 2022, 4 Papuans were killed and maimed by Indonesian soldiers in Mimika Baru district, a case that has sparked widespread condemnation. Meanwhile, the military presence has led to further violence against children and other civilians. In February 2022, 7 children were assaulted by Indonesian forces in Puncak Regency, with one subsequently dying from injuries sustained during the attack. Following a similar pattern, military airstrikes have caused civilian casualties. In October 2021, villages in the Pangungam Bintan Regency were bombed, resulting in significant damage and civilian losses. The Indonesian government has frequently labeled these human rights violations as operations targeting TPNPB members or their sympathizers, but many argue that civilians are being indiscriminately targeted without sufficient evidence or their affiliations. In response to these actions, the UN and other human rights groups have called for greater accountability, particularly as incidents of police violence continue to rise.
Social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and X have been instrumental in spreading information about the conflict in West Papua, allowing civilians to share their testimonies and document the situation with videos and images. This content shows the direct impact of violence, displacement, and abuse in the region.
Genocide has continued for so long because there's been little to no media coverage. So like many other BIPOC people in the world whose lands are rich in resources,
of Indonesian colonialism has erased that knowledge, that understanding from our Pacifica region. We are Melanesian and that will never change. So, as my sister said,
Hello everybody, my name is Milian Makina and I'm the coordinator of the Pacific Youth Council, and this morning here we're just showing our solidarity for the fight against the colonialism and the decolonization fight that's going on with our brothers and sisters in West Papua against Indonesia.
Today, August 15, 2024, the people of West Papua in Wamena, Naiperi, Jayapura, Manokwari, and West Papuan students.
Social media has amplified awareness but also misinformation. Despite growing international concern, a lasting solution remains elusive. The future of Papua hinges on justice, human rights, and the genuine inclusion of Papuan voices in decision-making.